Welcome back. Now, our visual effects are looking pretty good. We can swing the sword, and we get blood and sound. But typically, swinging a melee weapon involves some weapon trails. Usually, when we swing a weapon, we see a particle effect trail system trailing after the blade. And we'd like to do that, but that means we're going to need more particle effects. So we're going to need to get our hands on a trail system particle effect. This is going to bring us back to the Unreal Engine marketplace. And you can search for trail effects and probably find some really great looking trail effects, both Cascade and Niagara particle systems. And you can purchase those if you like. But I'm going to show you a really nice source of assets that include some weapon trails. I'm going to search for Paragon Minions. Here's the Paragon Minions asset pack. It contains several characters, complete with animations, and in fact, these are really high quality, and we could use these in our project if we like. Now, I'd like to add this whole pack to our project so that we can access these assets, including weapon trails that exist in this asset pack. So what I'm going to do is click Add to Project and search for my project, which is called Slash. Now I have several versions, so it's important for me to select the correct version, which is this one, and I'm going to click Add to Project. So I'm going to give this a moment to finish adding to my project. Now once that's complete, I'm done with my Epic Games Launcher. I'm going to go ahead and close it. And now I can open my content drawer, and I should see Paragon Minions in my content folder. Now, each of these Minions asset packs contains a ton of assets, including lots of characters, animations, and particle effects. So if you like, take some time to browse through these folders and take a look at some of the assets that we have for the various types of minions in this pack. Here's just one example of an attack animation for one of the minions that has 2 swords, and it looks pretty amazing. All right, I'm going to close that because I'm interested in the moment at finding weapon trails. Now, at the outermost level of this pack, in the Paragon Minions folder, there are characters and effects. I'm going to go into Effects. Now here in Effects, I can double click on Particles, and there are different categories of particles in here. Take a look at some of these because they do look amazing. For example, if I go into Player Buffs, there are lots of particle systems that you can use for really any reason in your game. Here's a nice buff that you can spawn above the player's head, and this can indicate that the player has some sort of power-up or effect. So these all look really nice. They were made for a very high-budget AAA game called Paragon, which Epic decided to cancel and give us Unreal Engine developers access to all of these beautiful assets. So we really have a treasure trove of assets here. So there are lots of particles in this pack, and some of them are weapon trails. For example, if we go into Buffs, Buff Black, Abilities, Melee Attack, Effects, they're all very nested. Here's a P-Buff Black Melee trail. Now, if we double click it, it's kind of hard to see it in the black window. We really just need to see how it looks applied to the actual game. So that's what we're going to do. Our goal here is to have a weapon trail that gets spawned when our character swings its weapon. And we can do that in our attack montage. So I'm going to go into my Blueprints folder and into Characters, Animations, and open my attack montage. Here it is, and before I go and add a trail to it, I sort of feel like this attack is a little bit too slow. So I can speed up this attack by selecting the green bar that is the animation itself, and I can change the anim play rate. Right now it's set to 1, I'm going to set it to 2 and see how that looks. If I press play, now I see that it's a great deal faster. Now, when I did that, notice my Attack 2 montage section was moved forward. In fact, I'm going to have to reposition all of my anim notifies, so this is something that you really want to get right before adding all these notifies, as you'll have to readjust. So before I readjust them, I'm just going to make sure that an anim play rate of 2 is the speed that I want. I think that feels okay. I'm going to select my other animation and see how this feels, at a speed of 2 as well. Yeah, I kind of like the faster animations. I may just put this to 1.8 so it's not overkill, and I'll choose 1.8 for both of these. That feels pretty good. Now to fix my anim notifies. I need my whoosh to play at the correct time, and it's a bit slower of a sound effect, so I need to move it a little bit closer to the beginning. Now, because my whoosh is a bit too slow of a sound, I can select this SFX whoosh, browse to it, and open SFX whoosh here. And if I want to play the sound quicker, I can raise my pitch shift just a bit. So instead of having a min of 0 and a max of 1, I can set this min to 1 and see how that sounds by pressing play. It's still a bit slow, so I'm going to raise it dramatically. I'll have a min of 5 and a max of 7. So that's a bit faster and higher pitched. I might even want a min of 6 and a max of, say, 8.5. That's a bit better. Now I can save this, and back in my attack montage, I can position this whoosh in my attack animation. So I'm going to move it a little bit more forward. And while I'm at it, I'm going to move my attack montage section back to where it belongs, and now we should just play the attack 1 animation. So it's a little late. I'm going to move it back a bit. Almost good. I'm going to move it back a little bit more until I get it just right. That's pretty good. Now my exert is going to go probably close to the impact point, or the typical impact point, right about here. Maybe a little bit forward. That sounds good. Now to enable and disable my box collisions, I want to enable the collision about here, so I'm going to move this back, and disable it right at the end of the swing right here. So I'm going to move this back as well. Now I also can't forget about my attack end anim notify. This is where we reset our attack so that we can attack again. All right, that looks good. I'm going to move to my attack 2 now. And that whoosh needs to be a little bit closer to the beginning. That looks good, and the exert should be probably about here. It's a little early. I'll move it back a bit. That sounds good. And now for my collision, I'm going to enable collision about right here and disable collision at the end of the swing, which is pretty wide, so right about here. And of course, the attack end can go at the end of the attack animation here. Okay, so now our attacks are quite a bit faster. Now we can test this, but we're going to do that soon. Now for the matter at hand, we want weapon trails. Here's how we do it. We can add weapon trails with a special type of notify. I'm going to go right here into attack 1, and under my notifies section, I'm going to click track, add notify track, and I'm going to call this trails. So now we have a whole track dedicated to weapon trails. Now in the trails bar, I'm going to right click, and instead of adding a notify, notice I have this option, add notify state. And in add notify state, we can choose trail. If I select that and hold Control and zoom in, I'll see that my new notify actually has a duration that I can change by clicking on the edges of it. So this is a notify state. When our animation reaches this point, our montage knows to do something. In this case, we're going to spawn a trail particle system. Now notice with trail selected, I have PS template here in the details panel, and I can select a particle system. And if I search for trail, we have several options that have trail in the name that came with our minions pack. I can select the first one, P-Buff Black Melee Trail. And now as we're playing this animation, we'll see a trail during this notify state. So I need to set the trail to the correct point in the animation where I should see that trail. Now, a nice trick is to click and drag on the edge and hold Shift, and that will allow me to scrub through the animation as I'm selecting the starting point for the trail. And I can do the same thing with the ending point here. So I'm going to scrub to about the end of the swing, right about here, and my trail will last only during this short period. So now that we have a trail, we've selected a duration for it, and we've selected a trail particle system, we now need to tell the montage where our trail should start in space. We'd like it to be right here on the weapon. Now, notice in the details panel, we have first socket name and second socket name. So we can choose where this trail is on the weapon based on sockets. So we're going to need to add a couple of sockets to the Echo skeleton. So I'm going to find Echo skeleton. I'll just go to my character blueprint/character, select the mesh and browse to it, and I can see the skeleton here. And I can add sockets from the skeletal mesh editor or the skeleton editor. So I'm going to open the skeleton editor, and I'm going to add a couple of sockets to the right hand. That way, as the right hand moves, those sockets will move relative to the right hand. So scrolling down and finding my hand R bone, here it is, I can right click on hand R and I can add a socket. And it's added all the way down below the fingers because they are all attached to that hand bone. Now I'm going to click and then click again on the socket to rename it, and I'm going to call this one First Trail Socket. And I can position my first trail socket at the base of the blade. So I'm going to go to translation mode and move the socket up and over so that it's right here on the edge of the blade. So moving it up and over, I can get it right there to the base of the blade, right there. Great. Now I'm going to add a socket for the second point on the trail, which will be at the tip of the blade. So I'm going to right click on hand R, add a socket, click on that socket name, click it again, and rename this to Second Trail Socket. And I'm going to move this one to the tip of the blade. So I'm first going to move it out to about the tip from this angle, and then I'm going to rotate so that I'm looking from a different point of view, and I'm going to move it right there to the tip of the blade, and just checking from all directions to make sure that it's approximately at the correct location in space. Now, once I have it correct, I now have two sockets that I can choose in my montage. So I'm going to save that. So now I have first trail socket and second trail socket. Now in my attack montage, I can specify these sockets by typing in first, and there's my first trail socket. And for the second socket name, I'm going to start typing in second, and there's my second trail socket. Now if I press play, I should start seeing a weapon trail, and sure enough, I do. And that trail is going to go all the way to the end of my notify state. So if I want to prolong it to about there, I can just adjust my notify state, and then my trail will go a little bit farther. All right, zooming out, I'm going to go to my second animation montage section here and add a notify state here. So in my trails bar, I'm going to right click, add notify state trail. I'm going to select the edge and hold shift to get all the way to the end of that weapon swing. And I'll position the start point accordingly as well. So zooming in, I'll start that trail about here, and I'll end the trail about here. Now with the trail selected, I can select my PS template, searching for trail, and I'll go with P-Buff Black Melee Trail for this. And for the first socket name, I'll start typing in first and select first trail socket. And for second, I'll start typing in second and select second trail socket. And now if I press play, I can see my trail, and it looks great. Now, that's awesome, but let's see how it looks in the game. I'm going to grab a weapon over here and swing the sword, And there's the trail. And notice we're swinging a lot faster because we sped up that play rate. Now it doesn't take so long for us to be able to attack again. Excellent. And that feels a bit more responsive, a bit more like an action game. We don't want our attacks to take too long, otherwise our enemies will just kill us, right? So this feels a lot better. And we got those weapon trails, we have our blood, we have our sounds. This is starting to feel a lot more like an action melee type game. Excellent. All right, so great job. We now have lots of new assets in our project. I encourage you to look through that Paragon Assets pack and see what other particle effects you have, what other meshes and characters we have in there. We are going to get into those later on as we develop this game. So lots of stuff to get excited about. Excellent job. I'll see you in the next video.